Okay, welcome to our shir on plummeting the depths of Torah and watching the Torah go through the generations and bring us into the present time, and to understand how this system called learning Torah works, and what each generation does and doesn't do, and what each subsequent generation then picks up and continues the Masara down to our present time. So we're in the what we call level 4, which is the level of the Rishonim. You can see here it's around 960 to 1300. The dates, of course, are not, ironclad. There's people that live on the cusp of them, but that's basically the period. And each period, there's a certain attainment, Torah attainment, that closes an era, and the next era after that seeks to understand the Kabbalah, the Torah that was handed down, and continues the understanding of what Hashem wants us to do in the halacha. So here we have an interesting piece, because there's a very wide variation in how the Rishonim understood this Gemara. Now, let's get to some charts that I made. I don't know if I showed you these charts, but did I show you this chart? Anyway, this one, I think I mentioned it.
Yeah, we started, yeah.
Last
week.
Okay, so on the top, of course, is Har Sinai, and then, you wanted to know the source. So in Chiga Tes Zayin Amid Beis, there's a machlokus between Reb Yossi ben Yoezer and the Chamim about smicha on a korban, and Rashi points out that this is the first machlokus in the Chachma Yisrael. Before that, people were able to get to the halacha clearly. Oops, 1 second. I just have to. That's my wife at the door. Sorry, hold on 1 second.
Leah, did you take the drink? Did you take the rest of it? Okay. Can you guys pour me the rest maybe then, if you're not going to have more? Unless you're going to have... okay, I just don't want it to go to waste. So
Okay.
If you're going to have salsa, okay.
All right. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't deep analysis, of course. But through the deep analysis, people were able to come to Hachra and the proper halacha. That period lasted, and it was really associated with the Beis HaMikdash. So that tikufa, that period in Jewish understanding of Hashem's Torah ended, and we had a few machlokuses between Hillel and Shammai. And then the Gemara says they weren't mishamish their Rebbe called Sarko. They didn't serve their rabbis completely, which means that they didn't understand the depth of what their rabbis were saying. And machlokuses began to increase. Our little Gemara starts with the simple pasuk in the Torah, which is Meitiv Sedei Meitiv Karm Yishalem. And the Gemara brings down, the mission just says, okay, that's what our Mishnah says. The Gemara brings down Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, who are also Tanaim, and they have a dispute about what this Meitav, Sedei Meitav Karmo means. The Gemara concludes that they both agree that it's talking about the type of payment that the mazik has to give. He does have to give meitav, and their only disagreement is the ceiling. Does he have to give his own meitav, even that's greater than the nizak, or no, only up to the nizak? That's what Reb Shmuel says. Rabbi Kiva says no. Even if he has better than the nizak, he has to give subjectively his best one, even if it's greater than what the nizak holds as best. And then we had the problem of how do you consider best? Is it according to the subjective reality of the mazik, or is it according to the objective reality of the world? So if the mazik has super stuff, which is much better than the world, does he have to give it, or can he give what his worst was equal to the world's best? Okay, so the Gemara concludes over there that he has to give his super mate of Sadeo Dafka, even if it's much better than the world, what the world calls good. Now that ends the discussion of the Tanaim. That's the Tanaic dispute. That's Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva, the Tanaim. And now we have the Amoraim now discussing Rabbi Kiva. Halach is like Rabbi Kiva, and that's the rule when he fights, when he disagrees with one person but not a group. So here the halach is like Rabbi Kiva, and Abaya brings up a problem. He says, wait a minute. On one hand, the Torah says you have to give the best of your land, but we have another also tonight brisa that says the word yashiv comes to teach us that you can give shavak asev, even subin, so you can give the worst of your movable property. So how do you reconcile these two different pesukim? Why should you give the best of your land and the worst, and you can also give the worst in the taltalin? So the Gemara went through the Amoraim, had a four-way dispute about it, and the Gemara rejected the two answers of Rava and one answer of Abaya, and it left us with Reb Papa's answer. Reb Papa and Reb Yeshua, who explained that really, if we start with the pasuk of Kesef, and we include Shavak Kesef, so we understand that the Torah is makpid on the Nizak getting his money back, and the best way he can get his money back is with metaltalin, because there you have a wide audience, so he'll get his money back. When it comes to land, really, land has a limited audience, and really there's a possibility that Nizak will never get his money back, but so the Torah said give the meitav land if you're going to give it, and that'll make sure that all the fewer buyers around will jump at it, because everyone likes a good land. So that was the answer of Partner from Rabbi Yeshua. After that break, I'm talking about the Nizak and the Mazik, Shaminan, we had a Gemara that all of a sudden says, Omer Rav Huna. Rav Huna now, he says, O Kesef O Meitav. So Reb Nachman says to him, what about Shavak Kesef? It says, Yashiv Rabba Shavak Kesef Afil Subin. So Rav Huna says, oh, that's for the last sleigh. Okay. If you don't have Meitav, if you don't have Kesef and Meitav, so then you can give Shavak Kesef Afil Subin. So that's a different shita than Luchar Reb Papa. Reb Papa was saying, you can give everything equally. The Chiddush of it was Tamar, Shavak Kesef and Meitav Karka equally. That seemed to be the Peshat over there. And Rav Huna was saying, no, you can only give Kesef and Meitav first. And if you don't have them, so then, of course, you have Yashiv, you can give it, but that's B'diavad if you don't have Kesef and Meitav. So that's where we left the Gemara. Then we went into this next era, got to the year 1000, and we looked at the Rishonim. So we saw the Rif pesakt like Reb Papa because Reb Papa was the Basroi. And the rule is that you go with the later authority. And Rabbeinu Tam pesakt like Rav Huna. He didn't give us any reason why. He just pesakt like Rav Huna. So then we went to the late Rishon, which is called a Rosh, which we'll look at a little more deeply. And his job now is to explain to us the pasuk of the Rif. The Rif doesn't tell us much more than what he holds the pasuk is. He says, first of all, they were arguing, and we'll get into that in 1 second. They were arguing, and the halacha is like Reb Papa Basroi. So he summarizes the Gemara in a very brief way and tells us what the halacha is. Rabbeinu Tam writes a book called Sefer Yasha, it's quoted in Tosfos, and he tells us the halacha is like Reb Huna. But none of them explain their position. Why would you hold one over the other? I mean, excuse me, the Rif does say you're going to hold one over the other because of Basroi. Rabbeinu Tam doesn't explain it. How they're learning the Gemara, they also don't say. They just brought the halacha conclusion. Now, Be'ezrat Hashem, to round off this discussion, the Rishonim, we're going to have to investigate two other Rishonim, which we have done in, the Ramah and the Rambam. Okay, and we're going to see their positions are different halachically than in Rabbeinu Tam, and we also don't know how they read the Gemara. How could they read the same Gemara we're reading and come to a different conclusion? So that's going to be the work of the generations after this. Okay, they're going to try to say, because we're going to see that the halacha is going to start moving into the Rambam, and because it moves into the Rambam, so people are going to have to explain how did the Rambam understand our Gemara. No one makes up laws here. We're just trying to understand what the Gemara says. The whole idea is that Kodesh Baruch has transmitted this system of halacha all the way down through the generations. So we just have to pick up where we come in, but no one's going to say anything that doesn't come from the Gemara itself. So where they are was going to be one of our problems. So in our next discussion, this is a little bit worked on chart. How's that? A lot more colors. Okay, so it gets deeper, but that's what it is. Okay, so here brought down from the other side, we have the Rif and the Rosh, of course, and the Tam on the other side.
It's the same chart, right?
Yeah, please. Yeah. Well, it's the same chart, except we're going to add.
It's the same chart up to a certain point, right?
Yeah. It's the same chart as this, where this leaves off. Oops, where'd I go? I'm sorry. Here we go, off here, right? But we have to go a little deeper.
Right.
And understand the Rosh here, okay? Because the Rosh is now, his job is to machriya. What is that machriya? He receives the Rif, the Masar of the Rif and Rabbeinu Tam, and he has to decide which way to go. Every generation we have to know which way to go. We can't just say, well, if you like the Rif, go this way later. So he spells out everyone's position, which we'll get to in 1 second, and then he's machriya. He brings a proof to the Rif, and he says the halacha is like the Rif. Okay, so let's see if we can do a little bit of that review. Okay, so I think there's a new chart for you. Yeah, what could we do? That's it. I'm trying to make it again. I'm trying to keep the pieces in order here so we know where we're holding. Okay, so the Rosh brought down Rashi and Rav Alfas. That's the first thing he did. Rashi talked about Rav Huna Omer. That was the gears that we have in our own Gemara. Okay, and he said that this Rav Huna on Tet is arguing with Rav Papa. That's number one. The Rav Alfas agreed. I mean, he didn't say what his girsa was, but he did say that Rav Huna is arguing with Rav Papa, so we can presume that his girsa is the same as Rashi, because we said when the word Omer is at the end, it represents another opinion in an argument. He said, Rav Huna said this, and Rav Papa said this. So you start with the person's name and then put Omer. It's a sign of the machlokus. But if you say Omer in the beginning, it's a new piece. It's a new beginning. That's the signon. That's the style of the Gemara. Okay, so the Rosh brings down Rashi and Rav Alfas, and Rashi's girsa is Rav Huna, and since Rav Alfas says the pligi, we'll also presume it's Rav Huna, and Rav Alfas added Basroi. Okay, the reason why he pesaked like Rav Papa and not like Rav Huna was because Rav Papa was a Basroi. Okay, so I see, even though they both say Rav Huna Omer, still could be a little confusing here. There is a pligi, there is a machlokus for Rav Papa, and the halacha is like Rav Papa. So again, the chart is always a little too brief, but I hope that's clear. Okay, so both Rashi and Rav Papa are going to conclude like the pligi, like the people who argue, which is Rav Papa and Rav Huna Berei Rav Yeshua. And Rav Alfas says, of course, Basroi, Rashi doesn't tell us. I mean, we can only infer from how he talks on the Mishnah about the situation. But he doesn't clearly tell us what the halacha is. But since he's learning Rav Huna Omer, and he says that they're arguing, and Rav Alfas gives the reason of Basroi, let's presume that they're together. Okay. Now, when it came to Rabbeinu Tam, now, what is the Rosh's problem? The Rosh's problem is how come Rabbeinu Tam went against the rule of the Basroi, though we go according to the later authority. That's the Rosh's big problem. Okay? He gives two answers, and then he's going to give his defense for the Rif. Okay? So there's two possibilities in Rabbeinu Tam. One, that he learns the gear Omer Rav Huna, and they're not arguing. In other words, Rav Huna is starting a new statement about the Mishnah. He's not another participant in the debate that we were having, started by Abai between the two Pesukim. He's talking about the Mishnah. And therefore, but the Chiddush here is, the Rosh, is to say that according to Rabbeinu Tam, Rav Huna is not arguing with Rav Papa. Now, if that's true that Rav Huna is not, we have to spell that out in the next chart, but if that's true that Rav Huna is not arguing with Rav Papa, so then that's a good answer. Then we don't have to worry about Basroi, right? Because there is no Basroi. There's only a Basroi if Rav Huna argues with Rav Papa, so then the halacha is like Rav Papa. But if they agree, and who agrees with whom? If Rav Papa also agrees with Rav Huna, so then there's no more Basroi, because the Basroi agrees with Rav Huna. So that's the first way the Rosh wants to explain why Rabbeinu Tam was not concerned with the rule of Basroi. Okay? Now, the other way that the Rosh explained, the other possibility that the Rosh had, because of course Rabbeinu Tam only wrote what he wrote, he did not explain himself, so you have to reconstruct what he meant, was to say that Rabbeinu Tam also held that Rav Huna was arguing with Rav Papa and Rav Yeshua, and therefore it would be nicer to say that the Girsa was Rav Huna, Rav Huna Omer. Okay, because that's like a new, not a new, I'm sorry, that means that they're fighting. When we say Rav Huna Omer, Rav Papa said, X and Rav Huna said Y. So they're really fighting. They're pligi. And the reason why, so what do you do with Basroi? There's a big problem. What do you do with Basroi then if they're arguing and they have two different shitas? And we know the Basroi, like the Rif said, is Reb Papa. So he says, the Rosh explains the Rabbeinu Tam to say, well, Rav Ashi, who put together the whole Gemara, did something very unusual. He should have put Rav Huna all the way back in that debate with Reb Papa, and he should have even introduced him first, because he chronologically is older. So by putting Rav Huna in the last position, Rav Ashi, who is the Basroi, the last reductor of the Talmud, was indicating to us that in this particular case, the halacha is not like the Basroi, it's like Rav Huna. Okay, so his switching from putting Rav Huna directly in the debate over there and waiting for him over here and putting him at the end was Ravina Rav Ashi's way of saying this is the halacha. So those are the two ways that the Rosh explains why Rabbeinu Tam didn't psak like the Basroi. Either Rabbeinu Tam held that Reb Papa agreed with Rav Huna, and therefore there is no inyan of Basroi because the Basroi agrees with Rav Huna's position, or that Rav Huna argued with Rev Papa, but since Rev Ashi did put him out of place chronologically, it was a flag to say in this particular case the halacha is like Rav Huna. Those are the two explanations of the Rosh to explain why Rabbeinu Tam did not say Basroi. Either there's no argument, or there is an argument, and Rav Ashi, who's the redactor of the Shas, put Rav Huna last. Okay? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. So now we get to the third part of Rosh. The Rosh now wants to show that the Rif is correct in his analysis. And the way he's going to do it is he's going to attack both these possibilities that he presented, i.e., whether you say that Rav Huna agrees with Reb Papa or whether you say Rav Huna disagrees with Reb Papa, I'll show you that it's not a tenable position. I'll prove to you that it's not a good position. That's the work of the Rosh. And he brings a proof from the Gemara, which we'll go into in a second, and with that proof, he says that the halacha really has to be the Rif. So that's called the Hachror because he brings it from inside. Okay, he brings a proof, an internal proof from the Gemara itself that Rabbeinu Tam was incorrect in his assessment. Okay, what was that proof? Okay, so
this is what they call reductio ad absurdum, right?
Yeah.
This type of argument.
Yeah, well, we'll see exactly if he shows that it comes to a illogical conclusion. Let's see. That's one way of doing it, but let's just check that before I say yes so quickly. Okay, here is a chart where I just added now what low pligi looks like and what pligi like. Okay? Low pligi means that Rev Papa and Rev Huna B'Red Reshua agree with Rev Huna. That means, spelling it out, that you have to give Meitav and Kesev as your first. If you have it, you must give it if you're the Mazik. And only don't have it, can you give Metaltalin, Yoshev. Okay? You with me in how I did the chart, right? So that was Rev Huna's position. And the first position of low pligi is to say that's also Rev Papa's position. Okay? The other way that the Rosh do, and of course here, then there's no Basroi because even the Basroi, Rev Papa agrees with Rev Huna. Okay. The other way that
Can
Rosh,
you,
yes, please,
okay, sorry, just without going to the Gemara page,
yes.
can you remind me very quickly then what's if Rav Papa is, if there's a low pligi between Rav Papa and Rav Huna, so what's Rav Papa's chiddush?
Good. Can I hold off? Can I hold off on 1 second, and then I'm going to get right to that, because that's the next. That's the next level. Okay? That's the next level of the analysis. Okay? I just wanted to have it spelled out here, so we know we're good. The other side will say that Rav Papa and Rav argue. Okay? Rav Papa, which means Rav Papa holds everything is equal. Even Yashiv is equal to Kesef, and Rav Huna says no. Metaltalin is worse. Yeah, if you have Meitav and Kesef, then you will not be able to give Yashiv. Okay, so then we have to say the only reason why, if they are arguing, then we have the Basroi problem, right? So Tam will tell you that because of the wrong positioning of Rav Huna chronologically, that tells us in this particular case we don't go by Basroi. Okay, so now let's get to your question, which is very, very, very critical. Okay. That's going to be the end. Now, to answer your question, you'll say, look, if they both hold the same position, so why do we need both of them written? Correct? It's repetition. They're never going to repeat. Okay. So to answer that, the Rosh tells us that they're actually talking about two different issues. First of all, he's going to say you're going to have to learn Rev. Actually, it's going to say Omer Rav Huna. Sorry, I should have said that. Much more better to say Omer Rav. If they're not pligi, then excuse me, that's wrong. I also got mixed up here. You have to say Rav Huna Omer, which means that he's talking about the Mishnah. Rav Huna is talking about the Mishnah, and Rav Papa was talking about the Pesukim. Now let's spell that out even better, okay? So first of all, but the first step is you're going to say that they're not arguing and they're not saying the same thing. So the first step is to say, well, one is talking about the verses and one is talking about the Mishnah. Well, how does that help us if they're going to come to the same conclusion? So the Rosh says that actually Reb Papa's question was he wasn't really coming to Matar Sakash. He wasn't some contradiction of the Pesukim. He was trying to explain you had a good word, but a lack of consistency. Okay? What was the lack of consistency? All Reb Papa was trying to do is, look, he agrees with Rav Huna, but how come, granted when you give Meitav Karka first, that's true. Why do you have to give Meitav? And granted that you have to give metaltalin only when you don't have and kesef, but then why all of a sudden can you give subin? So what Papa was trying to, actually I put him here, this is what Papa was trying to answer. How come when you give land, you have to give the best of the land? And when you give metaltalin, you can give the worst of the metaltalin. In other words, the Pesukim are not coming at each other frontally, as we said, Pesukim in collision. No, because really metaltalin and subin are only given when you don't have kesef or meitav. But there is a question to be raised, only a question, which is why did the Torah all of a sudden say in metaltalin you can give even the worst?
So this would not be, I guess this would not be as to speak in the strict terminology. This would not be a kasha on Rav Huna, but rather a shaila.
And if you look. And to bring I would like to say, if you remember Agamara, there was a very strange word mentioned there. Okay. Okay, I'll just go through the whole system of opening it. Sorry, this. Go back to C. Omer, Ella ki asi Rav Papa Rav Huna Bered Reb Yeshua. Look at this word. What is that word?
Right.
Pershua, perish.
Right.
Perish means to explain, as opposed to, remember I said, one of the things that bothered me here in this text is that the first, after the Rumia, the Gemara said, Lo kasha, kan bedato kan valkarcho. After the Rumia is a kasha, is a collision of two pesukim, Meitav on the one hand, and the worst, Subin on the other hand. I mean, if you have to give the best of the land, you shouldn't be able to give any Shavik Espen, certainly not Subin. And if you can give the worst, Metaltalin, certainly you should be able to give Bainis and Zibrit's land. So the Lashon here was lo kasha. There's no kasha, but in other words, there was a kasha, but I can remove the kasha. All of a sudden, when Rev Huna and Rev Papa Tzar and Rev Huna Bered Rev Yeshua comes in, he said Pershuha. Pershuha. Okay, so there is an indication, and only an indication, but that they are trying to explain explain an inconsistency, okay, but they're not trying to destroy they're not trying to solve a contradiction. Okay, Beseda. So a lot of the things that we look at, you know, you find a lot of times, you know, that these little words that are just glanced over, or the mind has a tendency to push everything in nice boxes. And if there's and it doesn't fit in the box, well, we shove it in anyway, and we just say lav dafka, okay? But the text is written very carefully. So what happens is people then will point out these little dikdukim in language, and all of a sudden you'll say, wow, that's a whole enlightenment of what is going on. Okay, so in order to say lo pligi, because I mean, normally you would say, wow, this is this thing in the Rosh, say lo pligi, how could you say they're not arguing? I mean, first of all, as you said, well, if they're not arguing, so then what are they saying? So then we're going to say, okay, they're talking about two different issues, the Mishnah and the Pesukim, and we're not talking, Rav Papa's not talking about the collision of the Pesukim as a kasha, but why, it's a lama question, why would the Torah say meitav, albeit lechatchila, you have to give the best, and b'diavad, how come you can give anything? You should have said meitav metalplan also when you can give it. So to that, Rev Papa answers, I'll tell you why, because you don't have a lot of customers when it comes to land, so you have to give the best of your land, and that's lechatchila. That makes it like Kesef. I mean, he'll get his money back. He also thinks about getting his money back. Now, when it comes to b'diavad and metaltalin, you can give anything because you don't have to worry about the amount of buyers around, because he can go here, he can go there, and can get it. So it's true that metaltalin is b'diavad, but it has a quality that you will be able to get the money back, and therefore you don't have to make any distinctions saying the best of your metaltalin. So that's the Rosh's explanation of Rabbeinu Tam, which forces us to change what we thought was the solution to Rav Papa. We thought Rav Papa was trying to answer the main question, which was how come it says Meitav in and nothing else, and over there it says Metatlan, even Subin. And that's what we thought he was answering, that conflict of the verses. And so Reb Papa said his beautiful idea that, Meitav Kesef is the best, and Shavik Kesef is equal to Kesef, and Meitav is really the worst. I mean, not Meitav Karka is the worst, and so Meitav brings it into that category. That's what we thought when they were pliggy. Okay, so those are the two positions that the Rosh brings up. And if you look at the Tosfos, you'll see, if we look back at that Tosfos, you'll see again Ramazim to those positions. Because if you remember the Tosfos, again, when you go into this piece more and more, you begin to see these subtle differences. If you remember Tosfos brought Perish Rashi, right, that they were arguing, and he had a problem with that because if they're arguing, that means if Reb Huna is arguing, so then why didn't he say his whole position? What's this interruption of Reb Nachman? So that was a problem. So he said, well, you have to say that he was interrupted, and but he really wanted to explain all the factors in the Pesukim. But he says, if I say Omer Rav Huna, now what does that have to do with exposition here? Why is that important? And it's on the Mishnah. And Rav Huna is saying in the Mishnah, Lav Dafka Meitav, but even Kesef and Meitav. Why do you have to bring that in, you see? So again, we said what it said, but the import, we didn't understand the import. So now what the Rosh is doing is saying this little girsa change becomes very significant to us, and he doesn't know here when the Tosfos brings down Rabbeinu Tam, and he says, well, Rabbeinu Tam lo sover Cain. Well, lo sover what? He doesn't hold the same girsa. He definitely doesn't hold the same halacha as the Rif, but does he hold the same girsa or not? What was the import of that girsa switch? So that subtle introduction of the Tosfos turns out to be a very significant problem in the Rosh. In other words, the Rosh doesn't know which girsa the Rabbeinu Tam is holding by. Okay, and because of that, he has to cover both sides and say, well, it could be that Rabbeinu Tam is holding the girsa that says Omer Rav Papa and Omer, which means that they're not arguing, they're talking about two different issues. Then he has to change this understanding of Rav Papa to an explanation and not a teretz. Or maybe he also holds the girsa of Rav Papa Omar, and there is a machlokus. Okay, and then he has to come on to this thing of out of place changes the rule. Okay, so that's a mouthful, right? I mean, we're very, very deep into the problem. Okay, but that is Torah. Torah is very, that's the Yama Talmud means it's very, very broad, and it's very, very deep. And Baruch Hashem, we have the great Rabbanim here, the Rishonim, to open up the piece for us, because when you go, flying over the surface with your speedboat, you don't see what's underneath. You don't get the oil underneath. Okay, but okay, Baruch Hashem. So now is the beautiful part. We have the Rosh now. He's in a position where he sees Rabbeinu Tam, he sees the Rif, and he has to be Machriya. Now he's big enough to put his hand into the Gemara and pull out a proof for the Rif and a disproof of Rabbeinu Tam. So let's see what he does. Okay, so I tried to here bring in. He's going to attack. He's going to show us that lo pligi cannot be, right? And he's going to show us that achrona can't be either. That's the two knockouts. That's how he has to. If he knew it's impossible that Rav Huna and Rav Papa are not arguing. They must be arguing. So then you can't use that teretz that there's no argument and therefore there is the basroi. Then you're going to have to come on to pligay, and if I show you that if they're pligay, this achrona is no proof, that'll also remove the second possibility of Rabbeinu Tam. And if we remove both sides of Rabbeinu Tam, we are left with the rif, that it must be that they're arguing and there is basroi. Okay? Some review. Okay. Don't get the bends. What?
Yeah, don't get the bends. That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too early to ask this, but are these going to be the only two ways of reading Rabbeinu Tam?
Well, you are welcome to produce another way.
But what I'm asking is afterwards, the Mechaber and the Shach and the Taz are not going to offer a different reading. They're going to say either it's one of these two options.
They're going to use one of these two options, yeah. But they'll argue with things like the rules, basroi, and they'll argue about this proof. A lot of the work will be removing the disproof of the Rosh. This Gemara that he's going to bring, they're going to remove it. If they remove that, so then they're free to like Rabbeinu Tam now, you see. Mm-hmm. So the work will be shift into this Gemara. That this Gemara will become very, very important. Also on this side, they'll also attack this side. The Shach will attack this side. We have a lot of, the chart is going to go down more and more. Okay, but no one's going to come up with a new possibility, as far as I can remember, in a new possibility in Rabbeinu Tam. Because they're either arguing or they're not arguing. Those are two possibilities, okay? What else can you say? So, but there'll be a lot of fireworks as we go down. All right, so let's see if we can recap now the proof that you cannot say that Rav Huna and Rav Papa are agreeing. Okay, so he brings a Gemara that is talking about a different issue altogether. It's talking about who the mazik and the nizak has to metapel with the nevela. Okay, we know that the mazik is going to pay for the damage, but does that include the nevela? In other words, has the nizak's animal fell into a bore, correct, and he died. But even a dead animal has a value. Okay, you can skin it and make Sefer Torah cloth, and you can, I think, can you make another? Has to be a kosher animal, yeah, just has to be kosher. So, or you can make pair of shoes with it. So the leather does have a value. Okay, it's not valueless. So who gets that nevela? Now, along with the nevela, there comes some negative problems, i.e. you have to schlep the nevela out of the hole, it stinks a lot, and then you have to strip it down and go around selling it. Okay, so who has to do that, metapel with it? So if you're going to say it's the nizak, so then the price that the nizak gets for the leather, okay, maybe you could sell it for dog meat or something, I don't know. So that has to be deducted from the total price of the damage, because you're getting money back. Okay. If you say it's the mazik, so the mazik has to pay the nizak full price, and he has to get his money back by, stripping the animal and go selling the hides and whatever he can get for it, right? So that's what the Gemara is discussing. Who has to metapel? Who has to deal with that nevela? The mazik or the nizak? Okay, so Rav Kahana. So the Gemara says, well, it has to be that the nizak gets the nevela. That's what Rav Kahana says. Why? Because since we have a pasuk that says Yashiv, meaning that you can give Shavik Kesev, Afilu Subin. So the Mazik can always give the Nevela back to the Nizak, right? So no matter what happens, the Nizak is going to be caught with the Nevela. So I don't need a pasuk to tell me that, he says, Rav Kama. I don't need a special pasuk of Amesi Elo to tell me that the Nizak gets the Nevela. Because already I have Yashiv, so the Mazik can give the Nevela to the Nizak if he wants. That's what Rav Kahana says. So he says the pasuk of Amesi Elo comes for something called Pachas Nevela, the depreciation of the Nevela. Okay, but his proof, his knockout of all these people who wanted to say Hamesia, or actually it was Abaya, wanted to say, he was explaining Rav Cheskia, Hamesia lo means that the Nizak gets in the Nevela. He says that can't be Peshat in the pasuk, because since we have Yashiv, the Nizak is always going to get the Nevela. Mazik can give it to him, right? So I don't need a pasuk to tell me something that I know. That would be, again, one of our redundancies. We don't allow that. If I could learn it, from Yashiv, I don't have to learn it again. That's a waste of time. So therefore, he says the second pasuk is to teach me something else. That's what Rav Kahana says. So comes the Rosh, and he says, look at this Gemara. Isn't this interesting? Rav Kahana brings a proof that the Nizak must get the Nevela because it says Yashiv. Now, the Rosh says, now let's think about this. If Rav Kahana was holding the Shita of Rav Huna, right? So you can only give Yashiv if you don't have Kesev and Meitav. But what happens if the Mazik has Kesev or Meitav? So then he couldn't give the Nevela back to the Nizak, correct?
Right.
So that's why we need the pasuk of Amesi Elo to say that the Nizak is metapel with the Nevela. So you're right that this is a reductio ad absurdum. He says, look, if you're going to, this Gemara cannot be, this Rav Kahana cannot be Shitas Rav Huna. Right?
Right.
Because if it's Shitas Rav Huna, the Gemara should have said, what are you talking about? We're talking about, what about in the case where the Mazik has Kesev or Meitav? So then he can't give, he can only say Yashiv when the Mazik doesn't have Kesev. But if the Mazik has Kesev or Meitav, he can't give him the Nevela. So therefore I need the Chiddush that the Mesi Elo goes to the Nizak, because I would never learn that from Yashiv. So I need Mesi Elo. The Gemara never says that. The Gemara never attacks Rav Kahana that way. Must be that the Gemara itself held that sheet of Rav Papa, that you can give all three of them equally, and we're not holding the sheet of Rav Huna.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Right.
Okay. So now we have a Gemara. A Stam Gemara, talking about Rav Kahana, and Rav Kahana is a Talmud. We looked at the other chart over there. He's a Talmud of Rava, right? He's an Achron, and he's holding like what we thought. In other words, he was not holding like this. He was holding like this. So you can't say now. Why can't you say that Rav Kahana was a fifth possibility? Okay, so you can't say that because in the discussion of the question of Meitav and of Subin, they should have brought Rav Kahana down. We never heard of such opinion. Here's a Gemara talking about a different issue altogether, and it's learning Stam like Rav Papa brought, that you give all three of them equally. Now, if you're going to say this is a new position because you're holding that Rav Papa really agreed with Rav Huna, so then we never heard of such a position. So it's the things that the dog didn't bark when he was supposed to bark, right? The Gemara would have brought him up over there since it was discussing how do you solve the question of Meitav and Yashiv. The Gemara should have brought up as Rav Kahana Omer over there. He never brought it up. Mashma, that he's holding like Rav Papa. What else are you going to say? He has to hold like Rav Papa. There's no one else, which means that they're pligi, Rav Huna and Rav Papa. You can't say lo plige. If you say lo plige and you say that Papa is holding this position, then there's no one for Rev Kahana to be with. He's like nobody. And if he was a new opinion, that we should have heard about him over there in the argument. So he has to represent one of the opinions that we have. And the only opinion that we have is Rav Papa. And the only opinion that makes sense, according to what he said, was that all three are equal. You with me?
Yeah.
So here's a direct knockout of this side of the equation, or the possibility that the Rosh offered for Rabbeinu Tam. It can't be that they're not arguing. Because if they're not arguing, then this Rev Kahana, who is a Basroi, is like nobody we ever heard of, and that doesn't make any sense. He should have been brought over there in the argument if he's another opinion. We never heard of such a shita. So you're forced to say that they are arguing, okay, and like the Rib said, the halacha is like the Basroi. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go down to the other possibility that the Rosh brought. The Rosh said, okay, he also agreed maybe that they were arguing. Right? That's the other side. Maybe they were arguing, right? So how does this help us with the Basroi problem? The fact that we found this Rev Kahana. How does it help us? So, the Rosh doesn't explain himself. Again, we're supposed to explain. We understand. I mean, the Rosh just says Alma. All he says is Alma. We'll look at the Rosh. Alma Rav of Rav Kahana saw Papa Rev Yeshua. But he doesn't explain what So how does that affect Achrona? Okay, so the simple way to say is that if we see the Gemara bringing an Achron, which is Rev Kahana, right? Stam, with this position, so you can no longer say that out of place was an indication that was the halacha. Because Rav Ashi and Ravina, when they redacted the Shas, should have made some comment over there when we brought Rev Kahana. How come they didn't say anything over there? How come they didn't say, well, also make an indication, don't think it. They just brought him stam. They just stam, as if, what does it mean, stam? When the Gemara brings someone an opinion, which is this opinion, stam, in another argument, as if, well, yeah, who doesn't agree with Rav Kahana, So that's an indication that that's what the Gemara held. If not, the Ravina Rav Ashi should have, popped up here and said something, They should have said, well, Rav Huna disagrees with that. Ravina Rav Ashi. They should have said something there. I think over in Rev Kahana. In that Gemara, I think they should have popped up and said something. They shouldn't have just, So by just saying that, by just letting the Gemara flow, now, of course, people will argue about this, because they'll say, come on, they said it once, you don't have to say it again, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into it as the people go along trying to knock off this rush. But one of the things is, you see, the Gemara just, didn't make any indication that wasn't the halacha. Just held that was obvious. Yashiv l'rabba shafikes means that everything is equal, right? It was like obvious. It didn't even, it says, Rav Kahana just says, wait a minute, if you don't need Vamesia Lo because Yashiv should cover that box. So it must, as if, wow, that's obvious, So that really is an indication of that the Stam Gemara, which is just really holding like Rev Papa, and even Rev Huna, who's later on, is holding like Rev Papa. There's other ways that people try to solve this rush. I mean, what does he mean? Spell out the rush. okay, which we'll get to in the Achronim, okay. But that's it. So that's how the Rosh says, look, you can't say that they're agreeing, Reb Papa and Reb Huna, because then Reb Kahana is nobody. So you must say that they are agreeing. Now, if they're agreeing, so we see that Rava and Reb Kahana, who are Achronim, are holding with Reb Papa. So you could say theoretically, I guess, that Rav Ashi, popped up over here in this particular place and told us that, and put Rav Huna out of place. But he would have said something in that other Gemara too, maybe, that he would have brought up. If the halacha is really like Rav Huna, like Tosfos says, right? He should have said the redactor of the Shach should have said, well, that's very nice if you hold like Rav Papa, but what about Rav Huna? Oh no, he's not a Basroi. In other words, he should have told us. He shouldn't have just brought the opinion of Rav Kahana without any comment.
Can I ask you, are we to assume that Rabbeinu Tam was not aware of Rav Kahana, or obviously he knew of Rav Kahana's opinion, but did he not factor that in to this discussion?
Okay, you're going to have to, the real learning is going to be, what does Rabbeinu Tam do with that? Now, then, as we go down to the next generation, we're going to start talking about that. The people who are starting to say, wait a minute, Rabbeinu Tam knew that Gemara, and he learned differently. Why? And they're going to start saying, well, notice that Gemara was Rava, and Rava had a Shita, and it was going according to Shita's Rava before the Gemara concluded. We'll start moving. That's what we're not going to leave Rabbeinu Tam in the lurch. But, that's what people are going to start doing. They're going to start, attacking this Rosh, okay, on all sorts of grounds.
From at least from the Rosh's standpoint, he would have said that Rabbeinu Tam just missed something?
No, he said Stochek. He's only going to point out that Rabbeinu Tam is going to have to give a very strange reading of that Gemara. Mm-hmm. He forces Rabbeinu Tam into saying that Gemara is going to come out very difficult to you. Okay, Rabbeinu, you'll answer me. I know you'll answer me. But you see, the best you can do is show the strengths and weaknesses. When I show a strength, it's a strength. Anytime you answer me with a dochek, which are, so I'm gaining points. After all, he had the Rif here. The Rif also knew that Gemara. So he has the Rif. He's trying to show the strength of the Rif against Rabbeinu Tam. So no one's going to have a knockout blow here, but something that won't be able to be answered. But again, the pluses and minuses, there's going to be points here. He's going to win. I think that's called, I don't know, I never watched boxing, but they say you win on points or something like that.
Yeah, you win on
paid
points.
Or something. It's not a knockout blow, but it's you're winning on points. So here, that's what we're going to have. Everyone knows all these Gemaras, and they're just going to have to admit that this one doesn't look as good to me. Okay? Other Gemaras look better, but this one doesn't look good. Okay, and then there'll be a question of where do you, in the total picture, which dochek would you prefer? Okay, no one's going to be glad if there's no game here. I mean, there's no discussion. Okay, if someone clearly says the halacha was like Rav Huna or like Rav Papa, so then no one would be talking here. But because we have to fill in the background, and there's different weights given to different Gemaras, and there's no conclusive Gemara, so we're just going to have to go with the strength. So that's the Rosh's job is to determine the strength here of the Rif. Okay, and he concludes that this is the strength of the Rif. And Rabbeinu Tam will answer, and Rabbeinu Tam, remember, doesn't say anything. He knows all this stuff is understood, and the later generations are going to have to now go into Rabbeinu Tam's head and reconstruct what he said about that, what he felt about that Gemara. That's part of the thing, because as I once told you, I mean, there's a economy of words here, because if you write too much, then you'll never get too far. I mean, people have to use their heads and reconstruct what you're saying, understand what you're saying. It's like, the lahavdil of a person who's watching a chess master. He appreciate what the move was because he sees what the possibilities are. But the chess master can't write down every single thing for the kid. When you're at that level, you appreciate the move. So, Baruch Hashem, I mean, the generations realize that people see less and less, so they write down more and more. But that's the name of the learning. That's the learning system that we're in. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So, our last chart. Not the last chart, in this level here. Okay?
Yeah, this level.
At this level, right. So, we have explained Rashi, Rif, the Rosh hold halachically all like Reb Papa, Reb Huna, Reb Yeshua, and they hold that everything is equal. You can give either Meitav, Yesiv, or Yoshev. Okay? And we hold Rabbeinu Tam is on the other side, and he holds Meitav with Reb Huna, Meitav, and if you don't have Yoshev and Metaltalin. But there's two other opinions there's two other Rishonim. One the Rambam and the other one the Ramah. So let's look at the Rambam, okay, which we haven't looked at yet. Here's the Rambam. Again, just cut out. Now the Rambam has to be learned in its entirety, really. It's very hard to learn the Rambam by cutting out pieces, okay? But be that as it may, because of our lessons, we're just going to cut out what everyone quotes. But the Rambam really is like a whole Gemara. I mean, he's a whole Gemara with pieces that reflect on other pieces, and he has to be really understood in his entirety, and that's what the Meforshim will do for us. So he tried to, again, it's kiman an impossible task to put all the Torah Sheba'al Peh in a few words. Okay, so you always have to abbreviate and hope that your audience is educated. The question is, how much do you abbreviate? Okay, so the Ramah decided he was going to compact or stick together the Mishnah and the Gemara and all the Rishonim, all this stuff, and reorganize it in the Mishnah Torah. So here's the little section that talks about, I tried to quote a few pieces there, but in the little section that he talks about our particular halacha. He says, and it's the Mishnah Torah halacha, Hilchis Mammon, halacha chet, sifkat and yud. What does he say there? Keshabeistin niskakin ligvos hanezik minichnasei hamazik. When the Beis Din is empowered to collect for the person who was damaged from the property of the mazik, govin, plural, the Beis Din collects min hametatlin techila. They collect from the metaltal first. Im lo hayu metaltalin klal. Now, if the mazik does not have any metaltalin at all, o shelo hayu metaltalin keneged kol hanezek, or he doesn't have enough metaltalin for all the damage. He damaged $3,000 and all his metaltalin is equal to $500. What's the din? Then govin hashar min hakarka. Then the Beis Din collects from the land of the mazik, min hayafi shebenichse hamazik, from the best of the property of the mazik. V'kol zman she'imisu metaltalin, all the time that you find metaltalin, afilu subin, even subin, in the hands of the mazik. Ein niskakin lekarka. You can never collect from karka. That's what he says.
It's a real departure. Real departure from the other opinions. It's amazing.
It's totally, I mean, wow. This is a different world. Okay? It's like a different world, right?
He doesn't even mention kesef at all.
Very good. First of all, kesef is not mentioned. What happened to kesef? Second of all, he puts meitav, karka, in the second position. Or it could even be the third position. We don't know. But he puts it underneath metaltalin. Where did we ever see that before? We only saw equal or metaltalin was worse. This is a brand new world. And believe me, the Rambam knows what he's writing. Okay? So
there must be other halachas that play into this, no? I mean, he couldn't just have left out kesef. He must talk about
so simply, where does kesef fit in? You see, now, where does kesef fit? So this is a very big problem. Where does kesef fit in? Where does kesef fit in? Why is he only talking about metaltalin and meitav? What about kesef? So I can only, people now are going to talk about it. I mean, that's going to be the excitement in the Rambam. What happened to kesef? What position does kesef have? Where do we get this idea that meitav is worse than metaltalin? So,
and it sounds, just judging from what we've done so far, to me it sounds like he's not leaving out kesef. It's just that kesef is so obvious it's not even worth mentioning.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, if I read this simply, it seems that what is the Beis Din going to collect from the nichnasei hamazik, nichasei? Well, how come he's talking about when the Beis Din is collected with nichas means the property of the mazik? Means that probably the mazik doesn't have money.
Right.
But if you're going to say that, you got to be careful. If he had money, and he had meitav, and he had metaltalin, what does he pay with? Now, if you're going to tell me money is number one, and then you're going to tell me subin is number two, and you're going to tell me that meitav is number three, which is a very good possibility,
yeah.
Well, now we have a real excitement. Now, believe it or not, we have the Ramah brought in the Ran. Here's the Ran, who's also a late Rishon. He brings the Ramah. So as far as where these people are, forget the dates. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. We'll get the dates. I'll put the dates. Okay, here's the dates. I should have put a link to the dates. Okay.
Rambam.
The dates.
That deals
Not about this. Not about this. This is the place that they all talk. There's halachas that are related to what we learned, like in the end of the Gemara, but not this. This is the Rambam's piece on our piece. We don't see anything else where he writes about our piece. A real surprise. So just to see the Rambam is at the time of Rabbeinu Tam, right? Rabbeinu Tam's 1100 to 1171. He's 38 years later to 1204, but he's pretty much a contemporary. Which we're going to do now is a little later, a few years later. Okay, he's 1170, 1244. Okay. The Ran who brings the Ramah is really after the Rosh. That's Rabbeinu Nisim. Okay, but doesn't matter. He's quoting the Ramah. So let's read the Ramah. Here's the Ramah, brought in the Muk Yosef. Hoda matzi hiv le afilu subin, he says. I added the word see. This that you can give even subin, right? Yashir, Larabos, Shavi Kesef afilu subin. Hani mile heichadaleis le lamzuze. What does that mean?
If he doesn't have money.
So, number one is money, right?
Right.
Aval heichad isle le mazik zuze lo matzi le dachi le nizak le bezuze. He says, I'm sorry. So he said, Kesev's the king here. If you have Kesev, you got to give it. You can't push him off to your metaltal, take some subin. No. If you have Kesev, you have to give it. If you don't have Kesev, okay, we'll take your subin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, at the end, because I think we read this together, right? Probably didn't understand the significance of it.
No.
Oh, we didn't? Oh, okay. But before I read it, I'm going to jump to the last line, the punchline here. V'chein nira, says the Ran, di isle metaltale va'ara. If he has metaltalin and land, lo matzi yehiv le ara. He can't give land. The metaltalin adifet tve, because metaltalin is better than land. Why? Taima dazmine lezuze, because you can get money quicker for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The why? The lo tzarech lachriz alayu. When it comes to land, you have to do what's called a hachrazah. You have to put up a for sale sign, right? You have to go around, land for sale, land for sale, land for sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when metaltalin, you just go around, open up your little stall there in the local marketplace, and you sell your junk. That's all. V'kro hachinami mashma, and he wants to bring a riot from the pasuk to kasev b'chutz tamot. Oh, but that's really talking about the Baal Chov. So we're going to see in a second. We're going to go through this slowly together. But he's going to hold kesev number 1, number 2, and meitav number 3. Now the Rambam's going to hold, even if we say kesev is number 1, he's going to hold, he's going to he'll hold kesev, and then metaltalin, and then subin, right? Right? The Rambam. Even if you say kesev is number 1. So there we go, the real shocker.
How do we know that? Can we assume that that the Rambam would say that Kesef is in first place?
No, we don't know. We really don't know. It doesn't talk about it's in first place. We don't know. Most people say that he holds that Kesef is equal to Subin. That's what they say, that Kesef is equal to Subin. And it's only Meitav that's in second place. But you could argue, theory. Why didn't he talk about Kesef? How come he said when the Beis Din is Nizak, and when the Beis Din has to get the property of the, what do you mean the Beis Din has to go get the property? Why does the Beis Din have to get the property? That's because he doesn't have Kesef. That's why. But you don't have to learn that way, okay? No, but that's the excitement. According to the Rambam, Meitav is last. But let's say either Kesef is greater or Kesef is equal to Subin. Okay, most people, the people I read, like they all say Kesef is equal to Subin. But according to the Ramah, Kesef is first, then Subin, okay, and then finally Meitav. He also holds Meitav as last. So these two positions that put Meitav last after Kesef and Subin, where'd they get it from? Where'd they get it from? Either Meitav was always first. Yeah, please. I'm going to do that Ramah with you, but yes, please.
I vaguely recall now saying that, and I don't remember where, that we said that it's possible to read that Meitav is only brought in as a qualification. In other words, if I remember correctly, it would go along with something like Rav Huna's. If Rav Huna's commenting directly on the Mishnah, then we would say that the Svara Chetzina is that we should pay with Kesef, and that Meitav is only brought in as a secondary position. it's obvious you should pay with kesef, but if the pasuk is saying that if you're going to pay with land, then it should be meitav. So that kind of position becomes a b'diavad position. But I don't remember exactly where that was brought in. We talked about that at some point, no?
Yeah. All along, I have been putting sort of, I don't know what the word, hinting to that, okay? Because that's a big problem. Because Rav Papa never spoke about kesef. Abaya asked a kasha between meitav and Subin. Well, what did Abaya think about kesef? He never mentioned it. Well, what was his position on kesef? He said one pasuk says meitav, the other pasuk says yasha. Well, what about kesef? Isn't there a problem with kesef and meitav? And Rav Huna starts with kesef and meitav. He starts with kesef, but he said that kesef is like meitav, as if meitav was the first and kesef was only like. So the real depth of thought here, and here I made this chart here. I want to finish the Ramah, but there's a depth of thought here of which, when the Pesukim are in collision, you see, in the end they're going to be they're going to work with each other. Okay, so the collision is going to turn into a functioning together. We really want to know, of course, they have to function together, but they're going to, what seems to be a collision course is going to really be an explanation of how they work together. So we discussed this a little. I mean, that's the depth of the thought here. It depends really. One of the things is where you start and how you start, you see. If you start, you see, Reb Papa, before we got complicated, we said Reb Papa starts with kesef. Now here's the line, which is of mutar, right? Let's say this is above the line is mutar, below the line is asr. He first put kesef in, Reb Papa, right? Well, let's say, because why do I say that? Because he said, why is Yashiv better than Karka? The E-boy, the E-lobo in the Mazab and Hacham Zava Masacheres. He said, Yashiv, if you can't sell it here, you'll sell it else. Now, what does it mean, sell it? What's the goal then?
Kesef.
Exactly. So Reb Papa really held that kesef was the best. And it was a kula, to make it easier again on the mazik to pay, that yashiv was put in, because that's very close to kesef. It's in the same pasuk, right? Because you're going to get the money, which is the ikar back, so certainly money, and then you're going to get the equivalent of money. You'll get it back. Now, Reb Papa said, land is very, very hard to sell. Okay, so I'm just going to put everything up here. So this is all very close to kesef. But when it came to land, let me say put this down here, it should really be out, because it's going to take you may never get your money back, because there's not that many people. You can't go to another place and get your money. So the Torah again was makel on the mazik and says, okay, but the best you can give, because what the amount of buyers lack, the quality of the land will make up. Okay? But Baininus and Zibrus, I shouldn't say, this part is out really, but according, this part is going to not exist according to him, okay? But Baininus and Zibrus land already, you'll never get your money back. So Rav Papa is all about money. Is all about money. And it's a very, very strong position. And why did he leave it out? Because it was obvious that Yoshiv is coming to make an equivalent of money. So learning that way, then, you should say Kesiv and Yoshiv and land at the end. That's so. If the Rambam is holding and the Rambam and the Ramah are holding Rav Papa, what happened here?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Because the Rambam says that you first go to his metaltalin before his karka. What does he say, the Rambam? He says the last thing you do is touch the land. Why? The way we learned that the land and the Shavah Kesef are equal. Once the Torah brought it in, then it was equal. Now the Rambam is going to have to say, if he's holding Rav Papa, that really the Torah first brought in Kesef. Then it brought in Shavah Kesef Subin. And finally, it brought in as a last position, Karka. That's how the Rambam, if he's holding Rav Papa, right? He's going to have to say that there's 3 different levels. Or if he holds Kesef as first. We don't even know if he holds Kesef as first. The Ramah definitely holds Kesef as first. So you're gonna have to.
Rav Papa doesn't mention Kesef explicitly, though, right?
No, but he does say that the reason why Yoshiv is better than Karka is because if you don't sell it here, you can sell it somewhere else, which means selling it is the most important thing.
Right, but that means that his argument works with an implication, which is fine. I mean, it's fine. He's just part of the argument. He's saying, look, we're talking about Subin and about Karka, and because obviously the value of Subin has to do with market value, so Kesef is implied. Why am I saying that? Because then it might make sense of the way the Rambam is wording the halacha himself. So he's saying, look, yeah, it's not even Kesef is so obvious, it's not even worth mentioning.
Exactly, and that's why in the Rambam what he wrote, you see, what the Rambam wrote. Let's get the Rambam again. Rambam said here, Kesha based in his hamazik, right? When the based in must collect from the property of the mazik. Well, what was it? What do you mean must collect? What was it doing before? Why all of a sudden the based in is collecting from the property of the mazik? Because the mazik should have paid in cash. That's why. He should have paid him cash. That's why.
Would it be part of just colloquial language to say that the basin is collecting money from the mazik? Would that even be proper way to say things? I'm asking.
No, he should have said what the Rambam should have said was. I mean, he should have spelled it out. I mean, the Rambam is supposed to be clear. He should have said, Kesha based in Govin min anizak, Govin bekesiv lechatchila. V'mein lo Govin min ha-metaltalin. He could have spelled it out. I mean, he should have spelled it out. His whole idea was to be clear in the halacha. So why didn't he talk about kesef? You know what I mean? So we have to medayek. Since he doesn't talk, we have to be medayek. Why? We have to make some inference in it, but he doesn't say it. You know. But anyway, he has this three-tiered, if you're going to say he's Rav Papa. Now, the Nachlas David does say he's Rav Papa, but believe it or not, the Gra and the Shach, they say he's really Rav Huna, believe it or not, which is really far out. But I mean, Rav Papa, at least the problem with saying Rav Papa is just you have to make a when the Gemara, when Rav Papa said you go, what did Rav Papa say? Yoshev Rabbi Shavu Filu Subin Dei Lo Mizdaben Hach Mizdaben Chutz Mikarka. What was the lashon he said? I should get that lashon. I have to always go back. The thing you always have to push everything back into the Gemara itself. Okay. Rav Papa said. It said here. Kiasra, Kol Mile Meitavhu. The ilo mizdaben hacha, mizdaben mamasa chrisa. Lebar miara, except land. So that means all metaltal and all movables are called great. I mean, except land. Land is not called great. Why? Because it can't be mizdaben hacha, mizdaben b'machan achrisa. So comes along the lay save, let the mazik then give meitav, ki hechi dechafes alei vine. So land is not called great, not called meitav. So the Torah says, give meitav in order to attract the customers. So we were learning in the Rif, and everyone agreed that that once land was put in, it was put in on an equal status as Shavik Kesef. But the Rambam, the way he's learning, is when land came in, it came in underneath the Shavik Kesef, which is a svara. I mean, it's not a svara, but that's the surprise in the Rambam. So he could be Rav Papa. We just have to say that when the Gemara said, when Rav Papa said that all metaltalin is good because if you don't sell it here and there, except land. Land is bad, and that means that you give it after you give subin. Okay. Now, this is going to be the topic of discussion in the Rambam because we're going to see in coming up in the next level of the Rosh, his son, who is the Tur, he's going to really quote this language pretty almost verbatim. He's going to quote the Rambam, which is very interesting because why does he bring the Rambam? Why didn't he bring his father and the Rif? What is that? Okay, and the Rambam, you have to know, learned from the Rimigash. Actually, it's the Rambam's, his father was, the Rebbe was the Rimigash, who learned from the Rif. So he comes from the line of the Rif. So it's interesting that he has this variation. I don't think the Rif said this variation. We have to go back to the Rif and read what he says, but it seems that the Rif is saying that everything is equal. Okay, so that's going to be the excitement in the next level. When we get to the people who write Shulchan Aruchs, which they say, okay, now we have all this machlokas Rishonim, now what are we going to do here? We got to, we have to decide among the Rambam, the Ramah, the Rabbeinu Tam, the Rashi, the Rif. What are we going to do? The Rosh decides like Rav Papa. So what are we going to do? I mean, so we're going to see that in the next episode. We're going to get now into the tour. You see, it gets exciting, but it all gets down to how these Rishonim learned Peshat in the Gemara. Okay, and that's what the people will be talking about. Okay, so let's look at that as a completeness. Now we said Rav Huna was a starting point. You see, Rav Huna was a different starting point because he started. If we put everything below the line here, if we're going to learn Rav Asi is Rav Huna, he said, O Kesiv, O Meitav. Right? So Rav Asi later on says, Karka Hari Kesiv, which is an indication that really Rav Huna is starting with Karka. It's the best thing to give. Karka is the best thing to give.
Why?
Why? Exactly.
Yeah.
Why?
No.
Why is it the best? Or why did he start that way?
No. Why is he assuming that in Rav Huna?
No, Rav Huna says, O Kesef, O Karka. That's what he says.
Right.
That's the
Right.
statement
So
he
why
makes.
would?
Now, how do you know when you have an or statement, which one is the Chiddush?
Well, you would think it's the second, but
No, it actually says the exact Lashon. Let's get the Lashon there. We have to go back to the Lashon there. We have to skip this whole second. Go down to Huna. Rav Huna Omer, O Kesef, O Meitav. What was this Chiddush? So if he's on the Mishnah, his Chiddush was Kesef, right? Because the Mishnah said clearly Meitav Aretz.
yeah.
But if he's involved in the machlokas in a biased question, and it says Rav Huna Omer, so which one was Peshita, Kesef or Meitav? In other words, which one was the Chiddush?
But Chiddush here doesn't necessarily. Chiddush, it could be just methodological. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a preference, does there? I mean, in other words, if, for example, if he's talking on the Mishnah and he says, "Oh, kesef meitav," so he says, "Look, the Mishnah says meitav, but we know as a general rule, or as a svar chitzayna, that kesef is always preferable." So the chiddush, methodologically, you could say yes. The chiddush there is kesef because the Mishnah says meitav. So, as a matter of methodology, he's introducing kesef as if to remind us. But that doesn't mean necessarily that kesef is preferable to meitav. It just means that it's a kind of reminder. See what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. It doesn't mean it's better. You're right. It doesn't mean better.
It's just the order of learning, as it were. Yeah.
He's saying, "O kesef, O meitav," meaning the Mishnah said meitav, and you can also use kesef.
Yeah.
Right? Don't think that's if don't think the Mishnah is dafka, meitav, media chmina lo. It's not. You can also use kesef. That's if he's on the Mishnah, right?
Yeah. In fact, you could say, I might even, and I'm wondering whether this is what is behind the Rambam's thinking here. You could say that even in Rav Huna's reading of the Mishnah, that meitav is the chiddush. In other words, that he's just laying out the default position of the Mishnah in general, and he's saying that the Mishnah's chiddush is meitav. So that the operating assumption of the Mishnah is obviously kesef is preferable, but it's so obvious that the Mishnah just didn't state it, and so the Mishnah's chiddush is meitav.
Right, but they're equal.
Yeah.
But they're equal.
Equal? Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe not.
Or not. Or maybe kesef's even greater.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's so great that it's not even worth mentioning.
Okay.
See, I'm wondering again, that might be what's operating behind the Rambam's mind as well.
But that makes kesef greater than meitav. So what was his answer to Reb Nachman though? You put kesef greater than meitav. So now Reb Nachman says, well, what do you do with yashiv? Afilu subin. So you're going to have to say, afilu b'delay slay means b'delay slay kesev. B'delay slay kesev, you give subin. Something like that. That they're going to try it. Believe me, they're going to. You're welcome to try it. They're all trying it. No, I mean it's the both the shach and the gra want to put him in with Rev Huna, and you're going to have to read this text a little like you're doing it. Even they go into you'll even see further docheks. What you're trying to do is at least dochek, but still. They're even going to go to further extents because the text is very difficult. Now, there's another problem here in this text, you see, which is very interesting because they say, okay, what's Kamash Mo'aga? And then they said, right after they say, hey, come on, that's Peshita. Come on, of course. If you don't have what? Let's learn like Rashi. If you don't have Kesev or Meitav, then you have to give Shavik Kesev. So the idea Mao the same Amrinan Lazil Tarach Vazav and Vaisei Kesev. Say no, go. You can't. It's not such a simple thing that there's that if you don't have Kesev, you can give Shavik Kesev. Maybe you have to go out and sell your Shavik Kesev. Okay, so that's what. And then the Gemara says, so Kamashma, no, the reason why the Torah said Yoshiv is to tell you, no, you can give Yoshiv, you don't have to sell it and bring him cash. Okay, but now the Gemara says, Omer of Asi, Kasafin Hari Hu Karka. Kesev is like Karka. Now here, you do have an indication of which is the known and which is the unknown. Because when you compare things, you always compare the unknown to the known. So Karka should be known. And the Chiddush is that Kesev is like Karka. So you'll say at the end of the day it's also equal. Okay. In the end of the Gemara is going to say, well, they say, wait, come on. The Gemara says, Lamai Hilchos, if you're going to say Linyan Meitav, they say, Hainu the Rav Huna. Well, Rav Huna just told us. If you're going to say that Kesev is like Karka, means like what Rav Huna said, O Kesev O Meitav. Well, it was said already. We don't have to say it again. Didn't have to say it again. So they try other halachas. They come back. It says V'chein Rabasi. He also says it. So the Chiddush here is that Kesev is like Karka. So it looks as if Karka was more known than Kesev was, according to Rav Asi, if you want to say that's the same thing. So if you can learn that, then really, like Abaye started off, and he said, Meitavin mean Yechlin Alo, and that can even mean not Kesev. That was one of our things that I always sort of skirted around, you know. Oops. Where am I? Okay, but this is the thinking.
Nobody would say the Ravasi speaking on the Mishnah, though, right? See what I'm saying?
I don't know where he made that statement. I mean,
in other words, if he's taking Karka as the default position, so he must be working.
And he's saying Kesev is like Karka. Kesev has the dinners. But that's also, you could say, the Mishnah is talking about Karka. It's talking about Meitav Sedehu. Didn't talk about Kesev, the Mishnah. And he's come to tell you, no, Kesev has the same din as the Meitav.
But how is it different from Rav Huna then?
No, he is explained. They say that's Rav Huna. They say that's the same thing as Rav Huna. So they try to say it's talking about some other din. In the end, they say, yeah, learn V'chein Omar Ravasi. They say, you're right. Okay. Uncle, he also agreed with Rav Huna. Okay. Okay. We don't like to say it, but what can we do? But there I was wondering if we have a different starting point, again, in the thinking, and this is where the depth of thought comes in. If we start with like Abaya, when Abaya said, Abaya's first words was Meitavin media chrinalo. Media chrinalo. I mean, literally, and you asked me the first day, well, what is the media achrina, right? It's the first question you asked. Other things not. Okay. So I said, oh boy, you just hit the nail on the head. That's exactly where it all started. Did he just mean Baininus and Zibris? Or did he mean Kesiv and Yoshiv? Or did he mean just Yoshiv? When he said Meitavin media chrinelo, did he mean Meitavin and no metaltalin? Or Meitavin and not even Kesiv? Or no, he just made Meitavin and not Zibris and Baininus land. So if he meant Meitavin and media chrinelo, mean not even Kesiv, right? And then he said, wait a minute, you have to have Kesef because you can even use Subin. Of course you can use Kesef, right? So he gave his answer, special din, karka, blah, blah, blah. But then when Rav Papa comes along, excuse me, so there, karka was number one, and then the Chiddush could have even been Kesef, that you can use Kesef. Could be a Chiddush. Maybe the Torah, is machbid that, as I said, mentioned once before. I mean, you could say a svar. The Torah, wants to make a warning to the mazik. You better watch your stuff. You're going to lose your best land. If you have land, you're going to use it. Normally, you're going to lose it. So it's like Shakespeare, like Rabbah said when he said, if you go to court, Okay. But anyway, that's the depth of thought we have to think about. You know what I mean? Those are what they're handling in the deep levels of this problem, is these relationships, what's in and what's out. But let's just do to be complete at this level. Let's read this Ramah. Okay. Let's read this Ramah, which we didn't read yet. Okay. Okay. I mean, this is learning, Baruch Hashem. This is what it's about. I'm not doing anything except presenting what they're saying. If you want to learn what learning is about, then just learn what they say, and they know what learning is about. I certainly don't. So whatever they're doing, that's called learning. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of what I'm trying to do here. I'm just presenting what they're doing. What they're doing is called learning Torah. You know what I mean? So now you know what to do. Okay. So. And that's the beauty of it. And like I said, unfortunately, people don't get it presented in a way that they can clearly understand what's going on. I mean, you can hear a shear for people can, I just want to think always frustrated me is because I didn't get a manual because no one, if you're not there, you're not there. That's usually what happens. It usually happens with the people who get it, the people who don't get it. That's it. And there's no time to explain anything to anyone, except the people who get it. So I always felt, a lot of people who could be very, very, very big, just fall on the wayside because no one explained to them the rules of the game. That's all what's going on. So that's the whole idea of this series of talks. Because this is exciting. This is watching what they're doing. You know what I mean? Then you have to. Each piece has its own content and variables and interaction, but they're all doing the same thing. They're trying to understand what the Torah means. That's all. And they're doing it through the Masara, which means we have a Mishnah, we have Brises, we have a Gemara, we have Rishonim, we have Achronim, we have Shulchan Aruch, and we have, we're all trying to understand. Just trying to understand it, that's all. And put it together in a way that makes the best sense. It used to be, as I said in the beginning, that the people were able to hold the stuff on their head and to do the analysis and come to the correct solution. So because of all the problems that we have in Klal Yisrael, so that ability became weaker and weaker. So our job is to see what they saw. And then if we could say something intelligent, if you can get another position, why not? But no one's, basically though, there's certain positions that are closed. In other words, you're not going to bring a new position for Rebbe Akiva. It's nice. You definitely do it. You have to say what you want. But the system is to explain the conclusions that were handed down to us and not to open up new areas. You can do it just, chadudei milti. You're definitely free to do what you want to do. But if you're serious and you realize that there's certain levels of understanding that are really closed off to our generation, you can, they say you can argue with Tosfos, but you're a fool if you do. He's playing a big game with big people. So but you have to argue in order to understand. No one's saying just don't close your mind. I'd say got to bring your mind to the base midrash. But you have to realize that they had, like you said before. He understood the Rosh, and you have to understand what was the pluses and minuses in both sides. That's the excitement of what's going on. Okay, let's read here oops. Yeah, I wrote more stuff. I'll just send it to you. I got a lot of the stuff here, you know what I mean? But okay. Let's look at I think I put the end here with a hey. Oh, here's Rabbeinu Peretz. Okay. Oops, that's what it used to look like. I had to go to the basement to find a better copy. Okay, where am I holding? Let me go back to there we go. Baruch Hashem, I have these things. Okay, well, here's the run. Okay, you read a little, okay? Get you involved a little here. You are involved, but get you more involved. This is the run.
This is the run. We just read the run, no?
No, I want to read the whole run. I didn't know I skipped. I said I'm just going to go to the end,
right.
But I want you to see the whole run. It's also not.
Right, okay, yeah. Right. Okay. Yashiv, Kra Yiserahu. So the word Yashiv is an extra word.
Right. So I wrote the pasuk here in gray. Bal habo yishalam kesef yashiv labalo. I just wrote that in so we remember the pasuk. Okay. Now the word Yashiv here is extra.
Oops.
I just.
That means it could have just said.
That's right.
It could have just said Balabor Shishalam Kesef without the word Yashiv. Yashiv Lomar, or what is it?
Lamali.
Lamali.
Should have said Balabor Yishalam Kesef Labalav. Cut out this word completely.
Yeah, so
Cut it out.
Why do I need the word Yashiv?
Yeah, it's an extra word. Bal habo yishalam labalav. Finished. So what do we need extra word Yashiv for? We know there's no extra words in the Torah.
In the Torah, right. Lema yishalam kesef labalav. Velo boy Yashiv.
Yeah.
What does lema mean?
Say yishalam kesef labalav. You see, cut out this word. Say bal habor yishalam kesef labalav. Right? Just cut out this word Yashiv. It works very nicely. Baal habo yishalom kesef lebaalav. Right?
So the reason it's there is to also say that something that is equivalent to money
right.
is also good. Yafidu suvin the mashmakol shovels. And even suvin to give I guess an example. We have to learn from this. With anything that is equivalent.
I'm Badayak here. He wants to explain, how do we know Subin? There's one thing Shavik Kesef, but how do you know Subin? Maybe you only have to give the best of the Subin. How do you know the best of Shavik Kesef? How do you know for Subin? So he explains that the word Yashiv is mashma. That means we hear from the word Yashiv, kol ha-shavos. Everything that you return. You can return anything. Right? That's what we want to learn from the word Yashiv. Return anything. You have to, kesef, and you can return anything else either. Of course, it has to have value, right?
Mm.
You can't return air, but subin, you can lahashiv, just return something to the Baal that has value, right? And he says,
Chol mile dihi le mimetaltale meitov ninhu. And all the words.
and all things, let's say.
All things. Yehiv
is noten. He gives to him. Lay is him.
So anything that he could give him from his movables is considered meitov.
Right. You don't have to give him the meitov of your. You don't have to give him the meitov of your metaltalin because by definition, it's meitov. Why? He doesn't spell it out because you can sell it. I'm surprised he didn't say it, but he didn't say it.
Yeah.
He says Ukarev Papa.
Ukarev Papa Rav Huna. Ukarev Papa. That's according to Rav Papa. Rav Huna.
No, he says.
Is this a difference here?
You see, it's not so good because it's Rav Huna Bered Reb Yeshua. He should have said Ukarev Papa U Rav Huna Bered Reb Yeshua.
Pasku halachta kol hamefarshim zal. So
maybe you're right.
Wait.
Well, that's very interesting. What's just written here?
Well, you think that Rav Papa goes with what went before?
Wow.
Rav Huna Pasku.
No, I read it again sloppily. But I read Ukarev Papa Rav Huna Bered Yeshua Pasku Hilchas Olam Mefarshim. I read that like Reb Papa and Rav Huna Bered Reb Yeshua Pasco, but he doesn't say that.
Yeah.
He says all the Meforshim are holding the halacha either like Reb Papa or like Rav Huna, but that doesn't make sense. That's obvious. So it's a difficult line. There's a dollar there which we'd have to read in the notes. Okay. Okay. But let's see what he says further. Okay. Anyway, you're going to have to hold like Reb Papa, Rav Huna. That's an interesting question. I just saw that now, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll leave that as a question. We'll have to.
Okay. Yeah.
Now he quotes the Ramah with a aleph, with a hey.
Yeah. Zikin. Now,
by the way, I wrote the word Nezikin in because he's going to talk about Alkov and Mechaktor. So I just wrote the word Nezikin in because this is where he talks about Nezikin. It's because of our Ramazal. Go ahead.
So the Ramazal says that if we find the Matzi, if he has it, right, then he should bring even Suvin.
No. Or this that we find that he can give him even Subin.
Okay.
The Matzi Yehivle Afilu Subin, this is Aramaic. Okay. This that we find that he can give him the Nizak Afilu Subin. Hani Mile, these words.
That is, if the mazik does not have money.
That's right.
But if the mazik does have money, lo matzi dechila lenizak ela bezuzeh. So we don't find that he should pay the nizak except with zuzim. He should pay
the mazik can't dachi, can't push the nizak except with lo matzi ledache le lenizak ela bezuzeh. He can only push him away by giving him zuzeh, not with subin. So here he clearly states that the first preference is kesef, and you can't give metaltalin unless you don't have kesef, right?
Right.
Okay, so now, v'hu hadin lebalchov. Now remember, these are the same people that Rabbeinu Tam brought down. I mean, the same cases, but he has a little different setup. The Ramah disagrees with Rabbeinu Tam, and he says, "Hu hadin this is the same din with Balchov. Meaning, Balchov also, meaning if the lover, the person who borrowed the money, wants to pay back to the person who lent him the money, he has to pay with kesef first.
Right.
If he doesn't have kesef, then he can pay back with shaveh kesef afilu subin. Okay? It's different than Rabbeinu Tam. Okay? But we'll get into it. We'll see the differences. But let's first say, actually, Rabbeinu Tam does hold that in Balchov. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll compare it later. But in Balchov is the same din. Balchov, everyone agrees, you have to pay first with kesef, and if you don't have kesef, then you can do metaltalin. The chiddush was in the Ezekiel that applies also, right? We never learned kesef was first according to the way we were learning the Rabbeinu Tam and the Rif. We hold it was equal. But here he's clearly saying that kesef is first, both in Ezekiel and Huadin, the same thing in Balchov. And everyone agreed in Balchov that kesef was first. Now what about the Mekach Tos problem? The Havale.
I don't remember what, I mean, go.
Okay, what's Mechak Tos? You know what Mechak Tos is, remember? Mechak is
that's
that
when somebody misrepresents the item that they've sold.
Exactly. So he says misrepresentation makes the person who misrepresented the item into a goslan.
Right.
He's stealing from the guy, right? He told you this car is has a great engine, and you open it up and there's mice running around on a wheel. You know what I mean? So you're a ganav. You told him it was a Rolls Royce, and it turned out to be a Volkswagen. Okay, so he says that a mekach is like a goslan. Oh, so what's the hashlacha? What's the consequence of that?
If a goslan and a goslan is one of the 24, falls into one of the 24 categories of damages with respect to meta.
So that would simply mean that the mekach has to pay metav.
Without the option of kesef or...
Well, let's see what he says. He's saying, well, we didn't even talk about metav yet. So the first thing he spoke about in the Ezekiel was kesef and metaltalin, right? We didn't talk about metav karka yet, but let's just see what he says, okay? Hamocher peretz, a person who sells peros, daf tzadik beis. Gabi hamocher shor lecharo. A person sells an ox to his friend. His friend thinks he's getting an ox for plowing, so he spends a lot of money. It turns out the ox is a nadchan, and he has to be whatever. Yeah, it's like a wild ox, and he's no good for plowing. The only thing to do is cut his throat and sell the meat, right? Mm-hmm. So the buyer goes back, says, "What are you giving me here?" Okay, mekach tos. So what's the din?
The ishtalume mina. Ishtalume means what, payment here?
Yeah.
Like lishkol Torah bezuze. Lishkol Torah bezuze is to give out the equivalent of the bull in money, to pay the value of the bull in zuzim. But what's the first part? Leka? Oh, if he doesn't have.
I think if the mechak tos guy doesn't have money, so then the nizak, I mean this who got the raw deal, it takes the bull for the payment. If this mekach tos guy, this Goslin, doesn't have money, so then the nizak take bull for payment.
But it's not.
That's shaveh kesef.
Not enough.
No, if he
But it's,
can't pay him with, oh, you're right, or maybe he doesn't have all the money. Let's say
this is just a
maybe
supplement.
the leked l'tashlumei minei. If he can't pay it all back, so then he makes it up with the Torah shore.
Right. But he has to pay the difference, basically.
He has to pay the difference. Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't have cash, so you make it up with the meat from the ox. Okay. Ubehedya amrin and hasam. It clearly states over there that what?
The isle zuze, that if he has money, lo matzi amor le shakal Torah bezuze. So we don't find that it says that he should go and pay him with the bull as if it's
right. If he has cash,
payment.
right.
He
It
should
means
pay him in full.
if he has cash, then he can't shove him into the bull. He has to pay cash.
He has to take the bull back and give him the full cash back.
Exactly, cash back.
Right.
Okay. If he has cash, he has to pay him. If he doesn't have all the cash, so then the guy could take the bull, okay, or and get as much money as he can or make up the difference. But once he has cash and in a mekachta situation, so then he has to pay with cash. So here he only spoke about again cash versus shavik kesef, right? Kesef versus shavik kesef, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. But in the beginning over here, it little bothers me that he said he's one of the 24 Goslin that he has to give Meitav. What does that mean? Where does Meitav fit in? I mean, if he doesn't have cash, then you can. If he doesn't have cash, then he's going to say later on, if the last thing you're going to give is your Meitav karka. If you don't have cash and the bull doesn't cover the cost of the ripoff, so then he holds you also have to give Meitav because again it's one of the 24 Nezikins. But okay, let's get to that. Okay, but whatever it is, cash comes before Shavik Kesef. Right? So far now he wants to say also in Balchov, also cash comes before Shavik Kesef. And he wants to bring a raya. Okay, we have to get all these Gemaras. We didn't do it, but in Perika Kosev, it's in Pei Vav. I have a link to it. Okay, Gabiyahu Tolamasav Ba'akum Have. What happened over there was a person owed the person who borrowed the money comes to the lender and he says, I would like my money back, time to pay. So the lender says, I don't have any money to pay you. So the borrower says, well, what's all that money on your table? So the lender says, oh, that's some guy that I'm holding the money for. I'm just watching it for this guy. So,
why does it matter if it's a goy or not?
Why does it matter? You could have said I'm watching it for a Jew. I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, is the halacha different?
I don't know. That's a good question. I didn't think of that. I have to look over. We have to look over there and that's a good question. Why did he? Why did you say it's my friend? It's Ruvain's money. I'm just watching Ruvain's money. Okay, but that's the case over there. Okay, so Gabi Balchov, it says about this person who was Tolui Masav Ba'akum. He said the money that he has, the cash that he has, belongs to a guy. Maybe the guy's not around. He's out of town. A Jew would be around. I don't know. Well, we'll see what he says. Okay, so but he wants to bring a raya over there. Really, the bar of the money came in, and he wanted his money back. He says, "Give me my money back." He says, "Oh, this is not my money." Why was he saying that? The lender says it's not my money. I'm sorry, the lender. I'm sorry. The lender comes into the borrower and he says, "Give me my money back." So the borrower says, "Oh, this is not money. You'll have to take some shavik kesef or something." But mashma, the lender had a right to get the money. right?
Right.
Now he has to figure out if the guy, it's really the money this guy's not. He has to go to the guy who knows a whole big gewalt. But Masha from over there, he has a right to get his money back first before that's what he said. Give me, if it, you know what I mean? That's why the guy said, well, this is not, if it was true that he could give him Shavik Kesef, he should have just given the Shavik Kesef and at the end of it. What was the guy saying? What's his money? So, mashma that when you have money and you borrowed money, you have to pay back with money first. Okay? That's what's mashma. So that's mashma. The isle zuze, when you're a borrower, matzila omar le shakal Torah zuze. You can't say, take this bull for zuze. I'm sorry, that was mekaktos. I'm sorry. Here. Okay, so over there it's mashma because the guy came in and asked for the money, and he had, and the lender had to say goy, meaning that he had a right to the money. The lender, the lender has a right to the money. The borrower had to say it's goyish money. Why say goyish money? Because he wanted to give him Shavik Kesef. Okay. Now, even here in Gemara, in the Zikin, it's mashma. Here's an important point, that you have to give money before Shavik Kesef. Now he's going to bring a inference from the language. Go ahead, read. Taima, and that's in Rapapa.
What's Rapapa? This is Rapapa speaking?
Yeah, he's bringing from the Lashon of Rapapa an indication that Kesef is before Shavik Kesef, from the words of Rapapa.
Time Mishum the lo mizdavin hacha.
That was
that, right, that if we can't sell it one way, we'll sell it another way.
Oops, I'm sorry. That was the Lashon of Rapapa, right? Oops, what did I just do?
Right.
Why am I not doing that right? Right? Now he's going to bring a diuk from that. The shemine that we hear from that lashon, that what?
The chula milta lezmune leila nazik demei nazik nazikin bezuzeh. That all of this is the gist of it is that everything's being converted into money, right? Hula milta, everything is going to money.
Yeah, so let's read it carefully. The mashmamine what, comma, the kule milta, everything, the zamune le lenizak, the may nizikin bezuze. Let me see if I can read that right. Everything that is at hand for the nizak, the zamune, that's like a mazuman, that's at hand. Okay, that's like money for the nizak, or is better, right? Why? This is what we were saying all the time. He says it more or less clearly. He says when Rapapa said that the reason why everything is meitav in metaltalin is because if you don't sell it here, you'll sell it somewhere else. So it means that the thing that you can get money for, that the nizak can get money for, is better, right? So therefore, he wants to say, therefore, Kesef has to be the best. He wants to bring a raya that Kesef is better than Shavik Kesef, because Shavik Kesef is looked at only in terms of getting money. So money is the ikar, right? Money is the main thing. And Shavik Kesef is the best, or the best is the closest, because you'll be able to get the money. But the best thing you should have is the money right away, right? It says, okay, if you can't get it here, then you can go to another city. But what's the goal? The goal is to have money in your hands. So money has to be better than metaltalin, that you have to run from here and you have to run to there. It's true you'll get the money, but you have to run. The best thing is money. That's what he wants to be mashma, that in the case of Nazikin, and even Rav Papa that money is better than Madeline.
Right.
V'kaven, let's read Rashi. The kaven the mahai timahu, since that this reason was given for metaltalin, that you'll be able to cash it eventually into cash. Mamela mashma the ki lamazik zuze mechayev lemesiv lezuze. So mamela, we understand, since we're talking about the shavi kesef in terms of getting money, so we can hear that the best thing is to have money itself. That when you have it, you have to give it. Right? That's in the Zikin. Okay? Okay? V'chein hadin b'bal
That's in the
chovis.
Zikin, or?
That's in the Zikin.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so in the Zikin also, kesef is better than metaltalin, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then he says, v'chein hadin b'bal chov. V'chein hadin b'bal chov. Now, this is the same thing in bal chov. Dehor, the gara, kocho, the malva mibeninus. I hope I don't have to interrupt and speak to this person. Okay, I may have to. Okay, v'chein hadin b'bal chov. Why? He wants to say also balchov, the kesef is better. The hor, the gara kocho, the malva bebeninus. Why does the malva get beninus and not idis? Have mishum chashasha shema yichbos v'yilunena. Okay. Okay, just 1 second. We're gonna stop, and I have to get. Just don't leave. I'm just going to. Okay, just 1 second. I hope this works if I put it. Yes, just 1 second. I just have to put it on pause. Okay, so we were reading the Ramah, and he said the following. Okay, Gabi Balchov Nami. What's the whole idea here is that if you have kesef and shavik kesef, you have to pay the kesef first. Okay. Now he says here, v'chein hadin b'balchov. I don't know why he has to repeat balchov. He already said it. He said gabi balchov namimash. I don't know why he's saying this. The whole now he says like this. What's the problem with balchov? The whole the gara kocho the malva the benis. Why is the malva when the malva pays back land, he pays back, I'm sorry, not true. The lova wants to pay back the malva, right? So the lova, who is the borrower, can pay back with baininus. He doesn't have to use idis. He doesn't have to pay back meitav. He can pay him back with baininus. So the Ran is explaining to us how come the malva is in a less position than the nizak. Right, the nizak has to get meitav. How come the malva only gets baininus? So he says, "Have mishum chashasha yichpotz v'yilonu," because we're afraid that if the malva, if the borrower has to pay back in meitav, then an unscrupulous lender will see this beautiful land of the borrower and said, oh, I'm going to get this guy. I'll get him to borrow money. He'll default on the loan, and I'll grab his land. So in order to protect the malva from these unscrupulous, the borrower from these unscrupulous loan sharks, so we say that the one who borrows the money can pay back with only baininus, as he says. V'ho lo shayach ela b'karka. Now this, that the unscrupulous creditor will try to rip off, as they said in the old country, the creditor, that's only with land. De lo matzi lavruchele. That he won't be able to escape. I think it means
right.
to escape.
Yeah,
Aval metaltalin v'zuzeh the lekel memela hamayafi kocha. But when it comes to metaltalin and zuzeh, so you don't say such a svara. You don't say that the borrower wants some good metaltalin or money from the loaner, right? Doesn't make sense. So it's only a special din in land that we have these unscrupulous creditors around trying to rip off land, but they don't rip off metaltalin because you never know which metaltalin you're going to get, I suppose. And money is, there's no value in that. So the reason why a balchov is in a weaker position when it comes to land than a nizak is only because, and he gets baininess and doesn't get idis, is only because with his unscrupulous loaners around. So we knock him down. And we say, okay, you only have to pay back in baininess. But really they're the same according to the Ran. I don't know where the Ramah stopped, but the Ran, they're the same. They really have the same din. It's just that in coming to land, we have to protect a little the poor creditor from these unscrupulous loaners. Now he says, "V'chein nira." You read this last part.
So it appears that if he does not have...
Yes, he does have yesh. The shin and the tough interchange. Is yesh.
Yeah, so if he does have movables and land, lo matzi yahiv le aretz. So we lo matzi, we don't find that he has to give land.
Lo matzi hivle, he can't give land. He is not able to give land. If he has metaltalin land, he's not able to give him land. He must give metaltalin first.
Oh, he must give. The metaltalin adifet fe. That's preferable.
Why? Lahai time edazmune lezuzeh. You see?
Wants to go to the market.
But you can get money quicker.
Yeah.
You see? The lo tzarech lachruze alayu, because with movables, you don't have to put up for sale signs and have people come and look at the property. You just go and show the stuff, and they get it. So if you have metaltalin and ara, he holds that metaltalin is better than ara. Metaltalin is better than land. Now he wants to bring a raya. And the pasuk he also wants to bring a raya from the pasuk that when it talks about a person who's the loaner comes to the borrower's home.
Yeah.
And it says in the pasuk that the person who's trying to collect his money back has to stand outside. He can't come into the house. Lo tovu el beiso la'avot. Don't go into his house to collect. Why does it say that? The stama islay bias mashma. So we see that we're talking about where a malva, where the lova has a house. It says the person the lender can't go to the house. So we're talking about that the person who borrowed the money has a house, and yet he has to give, not the house. He doesn't have to give. He has to give the cash and the shavah kesef first. That's what he wants to say. He wants to bring a raya that even from the pasuk that if you have kesef or shavah kesef, you have to bring it first. He has to bring out what's in the house to you before the house. No, you don't get the house first. First, he brings out what's in the house, either the kesef or the shavah kesef, and the last thing you get is the house. Okay, so here is the Ran quoting the Ramah, and it's like the Rambam in the sense that the land is the last thing to go. Whether the Rambam holds the kesef is first and Subman is second, or they're both equal, that's debatable. People I read said that...
this is nice because he really spells it out here very nicely.
Exactly.
I mean, I think more than anybody else, he really spells out the
svara.
difference between going to the... yeah, but the difference between the market and real estate, that's the real issue here, is that there's the certain items can be taken to the market. They lend themselves to commerce much more easily than land.
Right. Now that's all, that makes sense, and it's all a svar papa. You see, the problem here is that the words are so brief. So he's explaining Reb Papa. What does Reb Papa mean? I mean, what's the whole business? The whole thing is money in Reb Papa, getting your money back. So money is the best thing. Reb Papa's only we said, why isn't Reb Papa talking about money? Why is he's only talking about metaltalin and karka? Because money is obviously the best thing to get. But when you have a choice between the metaltalin and the karka, so he says you give
even then money is the issue.
Even metaltalin is better than karka. So he reads that all into that's all his understanding of Reb Papa.
It's interesting because even when you have the either or between land and metaltalin, the issue is money.
Yes.
The bottom issue of both is money anyway.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Right? For the land, the reason why you get the best land is because you're going to get your money back fast, or if ever. I mean, he'll be able to cash it into cash. So cash is the most, according to Papa, cash is what we're talking about. But the Torah is makel that if you don't have cash, give shavik. Land already, you have to give the best, because then, who knows if this guy will ever be stuck. With metaltalin, even Suman, he won't be stuck. So it'll be the few local guys around here won't be able to sell. So we'll go next door, we'll go next town, we'll get rid of it. But land, if the few people are not interested, he's stuck. But best land, So that's how he spells out very, very clearly how he understands Reb Papa. Okay? So he's holding like Reb Papa. Now the only question is the Rambam, is he following this line of reasoning? Okay, it sounds good for the Rambam too. Why not? Okay, and how come the Rif and the Rosh? How come they didn't say these wonderful svars?
Right.
And you see. Really, according to the Rosh now, you see, when he brought Rev Kahana, he'll tell you, look, Rev Kahana knocks all these svaras out. You can say what you want, Rev Papa, but it cannot be. Because the only way Rev Kahana is going to work out is if Meitav, Kesem, and Subin are equal. Because if not, then we need Vamesi Elo. I mean, to tell you in the case where you have Kesef, or that the Nizak gets the Nevela. So that's a very powerful piece that the Rosh added here. It makes this position very, very difficult. So they're going to have to answer that Gemara, and we'll have to get into that Gemara. But that's where the excitement now really is about. I mean, in light of that Gemara, you're going to have to answer. Where's Rev Kana holding it? Now he's nobody. According to you, if this is Rev Papa, right? That Kesef is first, and then Subin, and then Meitav. So where's Rev Kahana? Rev Kahana was talking to Rava. Brothers was talking with Abaya. They're all the same generation people. So how come we never heard? How come over there the Gemara didn't knock off Rev Kahana by saying, "Come on, we need Vamesi Alo when you have Kesef or when you have Meitav. Then you can't give your Yoshev. Excuse me, when you have Kesef, it should have said. Not Meitav. If you have Kesef, then you can't give Yoshev and let the Nizak get the Nevela. So that's why you need Vamesi Alo when you have Kesef. That's what you're talking about. Or according to Rav Huna, when you have Kesef and Meitav. But so that Gemara is a brilliant discovery of the Rosh, and that puts these people in jeopardy. I mean, it puts the Ramah in jeopardy. Okay, and they're going to have to explain it.
Yeah.
and even the Rambam is going to be in jeopardy because either he holds his position or he holds Kesef is equal to Metaltalin, and still the Gemara doesn't work good for him because if you have no, there, 1 second, if you have Kesef and Metaltalin, so 1 second, if you have Kesef or Metaltalin, can you give? Yeah, he never mentions the kesef. We don't know where he holds in the kesef. But let's say they were equal. Let's say the Rambam did hold kesef and metaltal and were equal, and the only thing that the last drawback, the poor stepsister, whatever is called meitav. That might work though, I think, because if you had kesef and oh no, because what happened in the case where you had only meitav? If you had kesef, no, that might work. The Rambam might work with that Gemara. I have to think about that. Because we said, what was the whole problem by Meisialo? He said, wait a minute, Rav Kahana said, wait a minute. Meisialo can't mean that the Nizak gets the Nevela, because we know that already from Yashiv.
Right.
So the Rosh said, wait a minute, it's if really Yashiv is after Kesef and Meitav, so we need the pasuk, because if he has Kesef and Meitav, and we have to know that he can't give the Nevela. But according to, let's say, if the Rambam is holding that even if you have Kesef and Metaltalin, so then if you have Kesef and Metaltalin, then you can give the Nevela, so then there's no kasha. Who cares if Meitav is only B'diavad? What happens if he only has Meitav, though? If he only has Meitav, so then, if he only has Meitav, oh no, what he's going to get the, that's not going to help. We want to say, well, what's the problem over there? If he has kesef, let's say, and he has to give kesef, so it means let's say if kesef and meitav are the first priority, so then you'll say, okay, he has kesef and meitav, and that's why I need the pasuk that the nizak gets the nevela, because he has kesef or meitav, right? So we said, so it must be he has kesef, meitav, or metaltalin, and that's why that was Rav Kahana was holding, that he had metaltalin, and he has to give that equally to kesef and meitav. So what happens if, I just have to think, what happens if he has meitav, and what happens if he has kesef? What happens if it is that if you have kesef and metaltalin, you have to give it? So that's good, because then if he gets the carcass, he's going to give it back, because if you have kesef or metaltalin, you can give it back. What happens if he only has meitav? Okay, he doesn't have meitav. So then, if all he has is meitav, I think that's not check. I think it'll work out maybe to the Ramah. I have to think about it. I have to walk around by Dvagan a little and think about it. But the Ramah will be definitely in trouble. Ramah, that Gemara is against the Ramah. That's definitely true. And it's also against the Rabbeinu Tam, L'chara also. Rav Huna, it's against Rav Huna. And it's a raya for Rav Papa. Okay. Anyway, so that's basically up to this point, Ad Khan, we're in the Rishonim. Okay, we have our work cut out for us now. We have to know what the halacha is going to be in the next generation, because the Rosh, his son, is now going to write the Torah, and he's going to write like the Rambam. The Rambam wrote about everything. The Rambam wrote about all even Beis Hamikdash things were not shaykh. The Tur just wrote about the halachas that we have to use in the present before we have the Beis Hamikdash. Anything that was not shaykh, I think like Shemitah and things like that, which was not for Eretz Yisrael because they weren't in Eretz Yisrael. So he didn't write about it. He only wrote about this and women and the holidays. What's the fourth one? Orach Chaim, Even Ezra, Choshen Mishpat, and yeah, that's the Even Ezra is the women. Choshen Mishpat is the money. Orach Chaim is the holidays, and Yeridea, yeah, also is the kosher stuff, right? So he wrote. That's what he wrote, the Arbitorim. So in Choshen Mishpat, he's going to bring this din down, and we have our out for us. We have to see what he says, and then continue down the line. Okay. Exciting. Okay, it really is. I mean, this is, like I said to you, this is the learning process because this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever anyone imagines is everyone tries to write books about. You know what I mean? The best thing is when you're inside and you see what they're doing, the proof of the, what they say, the proof of the pie is the tasting. I mean, this is what they're doing. So this is it. And it's very, very exciting. Okay, Bezrat Hashem. So we'll see you the next time we meet will be
Wednesday, no?
Wednesday, Bezrat Hashem. So I'll prepare, Baruch Hashem, the next level, and we'll get into the tour. If you have a chance to look at the tour, you can look at the tour, Choshen Mishpat, and we'll go weiter, Bezrat Hashem. Okay, be well. Have a great day. Call too.
You too. Have a Shabbat day.